Have you ever thought of taking your audio experience to the next level? Or maybe you're just excited for the 1111 deals and have everything added in your cart already. Well, save your money because I'm going to try and deter you guys from over consuming this season. You see, reviewing products can be conflicting. On one hand, I want to recommend you guys stuff that I thoroughly enjoyed, but on the other hand, it does feel a little bit wasteful and too much consumption, especially with so many repetitive IEMs coming out these days. But it also does help out the smaller companies because there are smaller lives inside the bigger ones. It also doesn't help that the economy is in a state of downturn, and it just doesn't feel right recommending things that you guys don't necessarily need, especially if you don't have the extra cash laying around. Now, if you're dead set on upgrading and nothing I will say will go into your ears, then go check out the 1111 guide I made for you guys specifically in the description. It's updated and it includes the best IEMs at each genre and price point. It's much faster and way more coherent than me explaining it, plus I also made several guides already, so feel free to watch those if you need more info. But for the others who are still on the fence and just window shopping, here are some scenarios where you should reconsider. Number 1, if you already own a decent pair of IEMs and aren't too serious in becoming an audiophile or listen to music strictly and religiously, then look the other way. For example, if you're using IEMs to study, to work, to watch movies and TV shows, so more things in the background and not music focused, then you really don't need to upgrade. In those scenarios, your focus is going to be split up and you won't be able to give your full undivided attention picking out the micro nuances, the small differences between each set, and you're mostly likely not going to notice any difference at all. For example, when I'm working, I personally find myself focusing the vast majority of my attention on the task at hand rather than my earphones, and it doesn't make sense to drop $500 if you're not going to fully experience the music or the IEM. In this context, something like the EPZ G10, the SimGot EM6L will do the job, and the max I recommend spending would be maybe $200 on the Chopin EPZ 620 or the SimGot EA1000s, as you simply won't notice the difference going any higher if your focus is on a different thing. As for the next scenario, gaming, I also used to be a gamer myself. I used to play semi-competitively in junior high. There was this really old game called Crossfire. It's a first-person shooter like Counter-Strike and Call of Duty, and I was pretty good at the game, like amateur pro-ish. The team, or the clan as they call it, I joined were always top 20, top 10 on the North American server, and I was only using Apple earbuds at that point, maybe $20 desktop speakers, and a Logitech Office mouse and keyboard in tournaments. I'm not trying to brag, but the point I'm trying to make is that the gear isn't the issue. If your heart stuck silver in CSGO, Valorant, or League, then you're most likely the problem, not your earphones. My recommendation would be to prioritize getting good at the game and then upgrading your monitor first to 120 Hz or something, but definitely not dropping $200, $500 on an IEM just to get one tap in Valorant by a 12-year-old. Especially if you play open world games and non-shooters, then there's even less incentive in upgrading because you're just chilling at that point. So under those two scenarios, any recent $100 or sub $100 IEM will do the job. Stuff like the Clinical Red, the EM6L, EW100, EW200, the Olina, the Hexa, they're all good enough. For the next scenario, this is to my fellow audiophiles. You do not need a $200, $500, $1,000 cable. I get it. I really do. Some of these cables are pretty fire, but unless you're Mr. Moneybags or you don't have a family to feed, look the other way. Same with the sources. If you already have a decent DAP or DAC amp combo and you're not capping out volume-wise and your source isn't breaking down, then you're good to go. You don't need another $200, $500, $1,000 amp. Stop. You're good. I think the only scenarios that justifies and where I can see buying another cable or source is number 1, if your cable is breaking down or you just have a very poorly constructed one, then yeah, I can see an investment piece would be nice, but make sure you have food on your table first and you're not maxing out your credit card and going into literal debt. Or number 2, if you're playing music directly out from your laptop or desktop that doesn't have a high quality dedicated source. This means you're probably gonna have more distortion and unwanted coloring. Then yeah, I would invest in something like the Topping NX7 or something like one of the FiO DAC amps. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a difference with the more expensive sources, there is, but just like IEMs, the diminishing returns are very real, which leads me to my final scenario, diminishing returns. There's a good chunk of the audience watching right now who are eyeing to upgrade from their current IEMs or looking to just try something different, like a different type of sound. And to you guys, I can only say, perhaps we should be grateful with what we already have. The world is very unpredictable and IEMs are not going to give you a 10% return year over year. Let me just tell you that. Now, I'm lucky to be in a position where I can listen to all types of different earphones, which most people don't have access to. So I can understand why there's a demand to buy new IEMs, because consuming is really the only way to satisfy that curiosity in our heads, myself included, as a lot of the IEMs I review I buy myself, like the upcoming Araya 2 for example. But I will tell you from personal experience, the sound difference isn't drastic. For example, if you're going from a $100 set to a $500 set, the difference might be only maybe 25, maybe at max 30%. So although the differences exist, they're a lot smaller because of the diminishing returns. And if you're going from 500 to 1000 to 2000, then it's even smaller. It's more like 10 to 20 at that point. An analogy would be like upgrading from a car that was going 0 to 60 in 5 seconds to a car that goes 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, or you're going from a gas to an EV. The difference is definitely there again, but at the end of the day, they're both still cars, and the grass is only a few strands greener on the other side. Which is why I don't believe personally it's worth buying into the hype and the FOMO just to satisfy that curiosity, or to compare which IEM is better, because I feel like that money could be better spent on something else like necessities, obviously, or buying a gift for your loved ones, a trip, or just experiencing life in different ways with that money. The only scenario that makes sense in upgrading, in my opinion, is if you're passionate about music. Now, I asked you guys earlier what music meant to you. A lot of you voted that it was a way to relax, have fun, and just really to just unwind and de-stress. And just like how car enthusiasts care about how the engine sounds, the handling, and how it cuts into the corner, or just the freedom that it brings, cruising down a mountain road. Similarly, music can have different meanings for each person. It could be reliving a feeling, a memory, a moment that makes you dance, hearing a melody that makes you cry, helping you heal. And likewise, just like that Porsche cruising down the mountains, music can also be a form of freedom outside of society. So to those of you who are audiophiles in the sense of the musical experience first, and you resonate with what I just said, then I would say to you guys, have fun on your journey here, but please take care of yourselves first, and your finances, of course. Don't be stealing from your wife. But for the rest of those who are still on the fence about things, I hope this video helped you rethink your purchase decision, maybe helping you deter you from making a bad purchase decision, or maybe it may you help realize that you are maybe indeed an audiophile and you're about to drop $500 on an IEM. But either way, the guide is in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Araya 2 review coming up next, and I'll see everyone soon.